Well, good morning and welcome to the foundations, the philosophical foundations of law. I'd like to thank Edward Foltz, president of the Morehouse Spelman Pre-Law Society, for sponsoring this event and for all of you being here today. I hope you get something out of this presentation. What are the kinds of law? Well, this in itself could be a 4-week course. And I'm intent on suggesting that law can be seen in terms of ethics and what's called the legal. It's sort of the distinction between, is something right because it's legal, or is something right, correct, because it's ethical? Well, hopefully both. Because you might have a law that's unjust because it's unethical. And I'm thinking famously of something we're going to look at in a moment, and that is Martin Luther King's letter from the Birmingham jail, when he wrote, under duress, but with a sense of peace, an unjust law is not a law at all, for it does not square with the moral law, the natural law. An unjust law does not even deserve the name of law. It needs to leave the building. The point being that if a legislature passes a law and they call it just, who are we, right? The people, or a minority group, or an offended group, to say, that's unjust. Hey, it's passed by the duly elected legislature. See, sometimes laws are passed that aren't right, that don't stand the test of time. What is that standard that we judge unjust laws by? It is the ethical standard, and the position I'm going to take today, that ethics is prior, a priori, but prior in dignity than actual laws that you see written by our Congress. At least that's the provocative part of this lecture. How about this? Kant's categorical imperative, a fairly famous doctrine which says, act only on that maxim that you can will to become a universal law for yourself and everyone else. It's sort of like this: the golden rule made into law for your conscience, applied by your will. Be ye your own legislator, Angelica. It doesn't have to be the law written by men or legislatures. Come on in, you're welcome. But the law of conscience. So these are examples. And finally, what's another example of an ethical law? Mario, it might be St. Paul's admonition in Romans, where he said, there are two laws, the law of the Spirit and the law of the flesh. And there's a law written on the hearts of men. That's interesting. A law written not in parchment, not right? Not in the docket, but in your heart. And that's where you might put this particular example of law and ethics, also known as natural law, a version of natural law. The defendant would have to give a pound of flesh located in his heart. We're going to talk about that. And in that beautiful play by Shakespeare, Portia, a lady, disguised as a man at a time when women did not have equal access to the legal world, Portia says, oh my gosh, the quality of mercy is not straying. Show compassion and not to the letter of the law. It's an idea that mercy and justice are companions. Truth, at its best, is detached, not cold and impersonal, but not dependent on emotions, a floral bouquet of smiles and gestures and whims, because Socrates hated sophists who were great at speeches but lacked substance, who generated heat but had no light. Let us be cool and have a conversation. Is something true and just because a judge says so? Or does he say it is true and just because it is? Is fiat, I announce to the world as dictator, right? Is fiat issued by a prince right because of his declaration? Or does it have authority because it is right? Is a law just and good because it was passed by Congress? Or was it passed by Congress because it is good and just? So, in the speech in the apology, he winds up this incredible speech in front of 500 jurors, his peers, on the Hill of the Pnyx. I've been there. Outdoors, no public address system, no speakers. Well, he says after he's kind of winning the trial, right? He's refuted some of his accusers, Miletus and Anytus. He says, "Oh, ye men of Athens," he's got the jury in his hands. He could get an acquittal. But he says this, "O ye men of Athens, reputed to be wise and strong. Hear me now. Are you not ashamed that you care more for money and power and reputation than the practice of truth and prudence? And you care not for how your soul will be best possible. I say to you, not from money does virtue come, but from virtue comes power and all good things. Therefore, acquire virtue, courage, justice, moderation, prudence." This is what you need in your bank, so to speak. Is logical consistency enough for Lady Justice? And as we've said, there's another lady, Lady Athena. And I simply don't have time to cover all of her contributions, but the gist of this presentation would be to develop the idea that Lady Justice isn't just interested in law. She's interested in the concept of the common good, the good of the city, the good of the people, those who are represented and underrepresented. I'm interested right now in developing with superior and state court judges a program called Accountability Court, Alternative Sentencing. And if some of you, I'd like to share with you, maybe get some interns to help me develop some more evidence for my proposals where we can do some good for those who are accused of things, but in proportionate justice shouldn't be put away, but should be rehabilitated and given a chance to stand on their own. This is a new way. It's counter to the popular view back in the 80s of 3 strikes and you're out. Incarcerate. Incarceration doesn't always work. There are better ways. That's my speech for that. But that's about the common good. Is that if you follow the natural law, you cannot and should not treat another as an it. Because we're not just things. No, this isn't it. And I can move it around, I can put it here, and it has no rights. I can cross its boundaries. I can aggress. I can tort. I can perform a tort on this. An offense. I can abrogate it. Because it's an it. But guess what, Angelica? You're not an it. You're a thou. And that means you're more than what a law written says you are. There's more to you than what meets the eye. That concept of the spirit of law, then, I think was in the heart of Martin Luther King and other great thinkers. And my final point is this. Good laws also require good people. In fact, without good people who are there to practice or to do what law cannot do, because law can't see everything that happens. Without that, law will fail. And as you go through your life and you attempt to consider a career in law, if you are good or just in your heart, you do the right things. Then you do honor to the written law and the unwritten law. So my basic point of this slide and series is, if you pluck these people out of history, like a chess board of pieces, imagine bishops and knights, right? Kings and queens. Just imagine we just pluck these figures from history. their virtues and the effects of their virtues fall away, and no longer can you have a chessboard in the game of life.